Hey, what's up guys? This is Durian Productions. We are quite excited to open box a brand new Lenovo YOGA 14S. This is a brand new YOGA 14S or in United States Slim 7 with Ryzen R7 processor, 8 core, 16 threads, 16 GB of RAM, 512 GB of storage. Just use a knife to open the seal, and inside the box there is a pretty small purple lovely box. Inside this smaller box there is only a laptop. There is no charger or cable inside. The charger and cable is just inside the brown box. It looks quite premium, although many feedbacks online already said that the machine itself is less premium than the box. Well, at least you got a good look. The manuals are there, but it's almost useless. Unwrap the black bag. Now we have the laptop. It's almost gray, graphite gray or space gray. There is a Lenovo logo, quite small one, at one side, and a Yoga logo, gray one, on the other side. It is not as Dell or HP, which generally use silver logos, while this logo is kind of low-key profile. At the back side, you can see a pretty wide window for cool fan to go in. The craftsmanship is pretty good, all metallic. The metal is very solid. You cannot easily bend it. It has a yoga design with a circular shape rather than IdeaPad series. You got plenty of ports on the left side, even with an HDMI cable to Type-C port. And another side, you got one micro SD card slot to Type-A USB port and a lovely small power button. I was just trying to open it with a single hand, but it is a bit hard. I was even thinking I was opening the other end. Okay, now we have it open. There is a kind Chinese black paper over there. It's a glossy 14-inch display. The keyboard feels pretty okay on hand. Not as premium as high-end Yoga series or ThinkPad series, but it's definitely better than general keyboard from Dell or HP. The soundbar are pretty wide on left and right side. We are expecting very good quality of sound here. The trackpad feels similar to glass, although I'm not 100% confirmative. The overall feel of this Yoga laptop is pretty premium. It is, well, just good enough inside this package, very powerful, and not as cheap as general IdeaPad series. One side different from general Lenovo laptop is that there is no shutter to block the webcam at the top. This is understandable because it's using a glass panel in the front. Let us try to press the power button. Take note that if you have a brand new, untouched Lenovo laptop, probably 90% chance you cannot open it. You will need to plug it on so that you can open it. After we connect the power and press again, the backlit keyboard is there and the logo of Lenovo also there. I spent some time to set up the windows, and you see the speed is pretty fast. The OS optimization is pretty nice. The Yoga webpage is also pretty quick. There are some bootware, but it's understandable for a Chinese laptop because they are optimized for Chinese market only. The responsive rate is very good. It's much better than the Xiaoxin series here have been testing, and almost the MacBook 13 or 14 laptops. It is the fastest or the most responsive AMD laptops here we tested so far. Now let's move to a YouTube video to check out the sound quality and display.
our next guest, all she was trying to do was catch a train in the London Tube, and now she is one of the hottest videos on internet. Here's why.
Finish the lyrics. Tell me something, girl. Are you happy in this modern world?
Or do you need more?
Wow.
Keep
going.
So hardcore.
Wow, you're really good. Keep going.
I'm off the deep end. Watch as I dive in. I'll never meet the ground.
Wow.
The screen quality is gorgeous, although on paper, it's just a 100 sRGB color gamut 14-inch 1080p screen. It's same as Xiaoxing Air 14 or other high color gamut 14-inch display, while the contrast ratio is very high. And the feel is gorgeous. It's much better than general matte display. There is probably some anti-glare coating on the glass, and the reflective rate is lower. Not really much lower, but lower than Xiaoxing Pro 13, which also uses a glossy display. The sound quality is very impressive. It's about the level of MacBook Pro series 13-inch, either 2015 or 2019 version, so it's considered much beyond my expectation. For the specs on paper, it has an R7-4800U with 4,000 MHz RAM, 16 GB DDR4 soldered on motherboard. The theoretical bandwidth is very high, approaching 60 GB per second. The battery is also large, designed 60 watt-hours and actually 65 watt-hours here. Considering the current discharge rate around 5 watts, you can use about 11 hours to 12 hours just not doing anything, and light work, I think 7-8 hours, not too much issue. Even heavy work, you can use for 4 or 5 hours, not really a big issue. The GPU is the same as any 4800U, the 512 shaders version, higher specs in AMD lineup. The display is from AUO Taiwan. We cannot find exactly the same specs online, but we can see that the contrast ratio is very good, 1.5K versus 1. This explains why we have so good contrasty display during the YouTube experience. Take note that Yoga 14S may mix different displays, as in China website, we already had information on that. The solid-state drive, Lenovo also mix and use. The current copy uses a Sky Hynix version, which is 512 GB, and while it's stable, but assumably the speed is not as fast as Samsung or West Digital. The network is provided by Wi-Fi 6 from Intel. It's a very impressive Wi-Fi card. There's nothing to complain about, and it is very fast. Some simple benchmarks on paper. For Blackmagic Roll speed test, the CPU is very high, score 21 frames per second, almost approaching the performance of MX250. And in Cinebench R15, the multi-core is 1.5K with single-core 172, which is the most impressive CPU ever tested on battery mode for 4800U. The GPU currently is quite low. Assumably, there is something running in the background, leading to a low score. Later we'll rerun. The solid-state drive is much slower than West Digital or Samsung PM981A. It's even slower than the Samsung PM991. But there's nothing to complain about, so long as it's providing a pretty fast NVMe drive, and it will not affect your usage. The cache and memory latency read-write copy are on the low side, we cannot 100% confirm that whether there is an issue on compatibility or not. We just rerun the Cinebench R15 and the GPU score now back to high range 16 frames per second, which is much higher than other 4800U. In idle mode, this laptop temperature is around 50 Celsius degree. It's not too high but also not too low. After starting the stress test on the CPU, the frequency is set to 2.5 GHz with a 15-watt envelope. This is very ideal because you can have a decent clock frequency without having the fan running exhaustively. You indeed have an option to press F+Q to unlock the power envelope to 40 watts, and now the frequency is now 3 GHz plus. Whether it worth it to draw 2 times more power just for about 20-30% of performance increase, this is, well, different for different people. We will, for this laptop, considering use this F+Q mode to run the stability test, because the normal mode is just too stable, and expectedly, it can run at that mode forever till the end of your battery die. After 10 minutes of stability test, you can hear significantly that the fan noise is there under this F+Q mode. The power envelope stabilized at 27 watt and the frequency about 2.7 GHz. It is not really suggested to use the F+Q mode. You just leave it to the normal or middle mode with a power envelope 15 watts, and you still have pretty decent frequency around 2.5 GHz. Now it's a bit low because the temperature is high, and to maintain the same frequency, you will need a bit more power. After the temperature drops back to 66 Celsius degree, you can expect 2.5 GHz speed. Let's now move to GPU stability test. You have firmware on top, and we are in the middle, just normal mode, not the F+Q mode. The frequency is now 1.55 GHz, which is very good. And once we press F+Q mode, and it goes up to 1.75 GHz with the power top to 20 watt approximately. Adding the CPU into the stability test along with the GPU in F+Q mode, the total power envelope goes up to 40 watts, which is very high. The GPU frequency is very high, 1 GHz plus. This is the highest we have ever seen on any AMD laptops. And the CPU is 3 GHz. This is very impressive that it can still stabilize at this frequency and temperature. After 5 minutes of stability test, the performance output is just wild. The speed of CPU is 2.6 GHz with GPU approximately 900 MHz. This is higher than any AMD laptops here tested so far on battery. The total envelope is still just 26 watts, which just tells us that the Ryzen 4000 has super good optimization and power efficiency. We turn off the F+Q mode and let the power envelope goes back to 15 watt. There's something unfortunate happened. The CPU is now limited to 1.5 GHz. It's not very low. Many Intel laptops also 1.7, 1.6 GHz and just 4-core, half-core numbers. While the GPU is a bit too low, just 300 MHz, basically letting you not able to play any serious game with intensive CPU demands. It will not be a serious problem should you just play Dota 2 or more MMORPG games, but while it will be a problem if you play PUBG in just normal games, and you may run into certain issues. So there is still some optimization for Lenovo to do in this normal mode, and make sure that this normal mode is usable for gaming to some extent.